Before we begin tonight's meeting, on behalf of the Mayor and Council for the District of Tumbler Ridge, I'd like to take a moment to acknowledge the recent tragic apartment fire that has had a profound impact on our community. We are incredibly grateful to our Emergency Services Department for their outstanding response, as well as the mutual aid provided by neighboring departments, BC Wildfire Service crews, and the Canooma Resources Mine Rescue teams. In times like these, we are reminded of the strength and compassion that define our town, as shown by the many neighbors, volunteers, organizations, and businesses that stepped up to offer support, shelter, food, and more. On behalf of Mayor and Council, our hearts go out to all those affected by this tragedy and the families who have lost their homes. We will continue to assist in the recovery where we can. Okay, I'd like to call Policies and Priorities Committee meeting for Monday, June 9th to order. Approval of the agenda, please. Councillor Norbury.
Thank you, Chair Bertrand. That all items on the June 9th, 2025 Policies and Priorities Committee meeting agenda be approved as presented.
Seconder. Councillor Julik. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thank you. Adoption of the minutes, May 20th, 2025, Policies and Priorities Committee meeting minutes. Recommendation, please. Councillor Julik.
That the May 20th, 2025 Policies and Priorities Committee meeting minutes be adopted as presented.
Seconder. Councillor Norbury. Any errors or omissions? Staff? Thank you. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thank you. All right, moving on to reports. 6.1, a ranking of the 2025 UBCM Minister meeting requests. Report dated June 9th, 2025 from the Executive Assistant to the CAO regarding the ranking of the 2025 UBCM Minister meeting requests. We've got a few recommendations here. We'll take one at a time, please. Councillor Julik.
That Council receive this report for discussion.
Seconder. Councillor Norbury. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thank you. Who would like to start? Councillor Julik.
I would say in light of the fire that happened this weekend, housing kind of jumps to the top of the list for me. I know that we've not had a ton of success, but I think that we just have to keep on it with the housing. So that's where I'm at. I don't know if we want to look at doing it the same way we did for one of the other things that we, like if we wanted to list them ourselves here. I don't know what that looks like. Like I've named my top 3. So I don't know if we want to do something like that. But for me, BC Housing sticks out, but there's nothing that I'm not do or die on any of them.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Norbury.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Chair Bertrand. Almost let the M word drop there. Going back. So for me, my top would be Minister of Health. Looking at what is the biggest needs in our community, without health, you don't have much. And with the outages hitting our community, hitting the region and our community, and in light of other happenings, I would say Minister of Health is top 1 for me. Yeah.
Top of the list there, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Any other comments? Councillor Hoffman.
Thank you, Chair. I think it all goes top down. Office of the Premier, I think, should be near the top of our priority list. I also have to say that housing, given our certain situation with the ability to back it up, should also be near the top, if not the top, of our priority list right now. Hard to say nothing here is at the bottom of the list, but we'll get to that part. But I just think the Office of Premier gives us an in and some ability to push, and that might be some overlap with the other ones here, but just from top down, I think might also be the hardest one to get as well. So that's where I'm at.
Okay, thank you. I can't see the screen there. Is Councillor Dussault, thank you. Councillor Dussault?
Yeah, thank you, Chair Bertrand. Yeah, I understand where Councillor Hoffman is coming from with the premier, but I feel if we hit more ministers before we hit the premier, then we have better asks, we have more information. As for my number one, health is definitely up there. Housing would be my number two. So, yeah, that's where I said.
Okay, thank you. Mayor Kirkowka?
Yeah, thanks, Acting Mayor Bertrand. I'm just wondering, like staff has supplied us with a sheet that lists all the minister beside it. If we maybe just take a few minutes, fill them out. I know myself and Councillor Dussault are in Kelowna for Keep It Rural Conference. We can send, obviously they already have them listed, the Minister of Health. So for myself, sending it via email or text would be, whatever number I number those ones in order, and they can come up with our list of 1 to 13 for priority. Give them a few minutes to add it up. Maybe staff can add it up while we continue on with the meeting. I'm not sure how you'd like to handle that, but unless you want to do one at a time, which is number one, which is going to be probably different for every elected official. But if staff was to just receive this, tally it up, and come back to us with who the priority number one was, and then throughout the whole list all the way to 13. And just to make a couple comments before you guys decide is, I do think the office of the premier is very, very important, but I also think in meeting with ministers or their staff ahead of time, if we're able to try and communicate that back to the premier's office, is we'd like to have them on the last day so that we can actually go back with meeting with the premier and saying, okay, we've had the meetings with your minister. Here's the information we've received. This is what this is where our angle is, and hope that we're seeing some pushback from the premier back to his ministers, and he agrees that this is the angle that we should be looking at, whether it's pilot projects or some other help when it comes to education or the tourism side, or with Minister of Environment and Parks. I've got some other information I'll bring at the next regular meeting. Minister of Citizen Service. To me, it's he's the leader of the government right now, and I think that's we use him as the angle to try and push back to the ministers to say that we should be supporting Tumbler Ridge this way. Would be my angle or my thought.
Yeah, absolutely. I would have to agree on that order. I think meeting with the premier towards the end of meetings would be more beneficial, in my opinion, just so we have that opportunity to have dialogue with the other ministries and then recap with the premier. I know from years past, trying to get a meeting with the premier is very difficult, especially during UBCM. I think in my last term we requested 4 times, and I don't believe we did get a meeting with him. So it is very difficult to try and get that, but I do agree. I think it might be beneficial to try and put together a priority list to have staff determine top 3. Is that what we're looking for, Ms. Scott, is kind of the top 3, and then go from there? Ms. Scott?
Yeah, thank you. Just a couple comments so with the talk about putting the Office of the Premier last, when we put those meeting requests in, when we're saying this is our priority, that means that if they don't have time for all those rest of those meetings, we're not going to get them. So if we put Office of the Premier down at 13 and they run out of meeting schedule times, we're not going to get that one. That's why we have to prioritize them. And so when we're saying prioritize, if these are all the ministers that we want to meet with, we need to prioritize all of them, so that when we put that request in, that, they're okay, well, they got their top 3, now we know they're not going to get their bottom 3. If there is some leftover time, we can fit in some of these middle ones. So it is important that we order all of them, But I just wanted to make that clarification that if we're going to say we want to meet with the Office of the Premier at the end of the day, that doesn't mean we should list them as number 13, because
Right.
there's a good chance we won't get that one then. But I also just wanted to mention that BC Hydro is in this list, and so if we want to number that one, then we should probably move up to recommendation number 2 and decide whether we want to meet with them first before we rank them in recommendation 3.
Okay, thank you. Council? Sorry. Councillor Norbury.
Thank you, Chair Bertrand. Yeah, I would agree in the ranking of 1 to 13. You know, it saves saves us having to, split hairs about which order. I mean, I think most of us top 5 would probably agree, just debate on the order. So I'm happy if we do all in order. Absolutely. Thanks.
Okay, so maybe we can write the order on our agendas here and hand them to staff when we're finished? Or a recess? Councillor Hoffman?
Thank you. I think the problem's going to be is when it comes down to how we're breaking it down. Are we just going with every vote as a point, or however we're numbering it and leaving it to staff to order? Or do we want to actually say collectively we go top down, what's number 1 as a council, what's number 2 as a council, and we end up with 13 in order? I'm not saying let's do that, but just I worry with the numbering that we're not on the same page. Some will have a 13 here and a 4 there, that I'd rather just say as a collective group, okay, my housing isn't number 1, but I can fight for it for number 2. So if we want to take a few minutes to sort of think about it for ourselves, I think the more prudent thing would be to actually go through each of these steps here, as tedious as it might be.
Okay, thank you. Mayor Kirkauka.
Yeah, thanks, Acting Mayor Bertrand. To me, I did number them already 1 to 13. I did it earlier when I went through my agenda. I marked BC Hydro as 13 because they're not a ministry, they're an agency. Obviously, governed by the BC government. So I marked in the last one because to me, I do have some ideas when we get to that. If we decide to read that recommendation, I've been reached out by a couple industries, or a industry, I'll be honest. So to me, I think there is some maybe different need to meet with BC Hydro compared to the previous years.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so I'm thinking we should just narrow down our top 5 between all of us here. So I did make some check marks. BC Housing and Ministry of Health are definitely in the top 2 or 3. Is everyone in agreements of that? Mayor Kirkauka?
Thank you, Acting Mayor Bertrand. So I have BC Housing at 8 because there's been some staff meetings with Ms. Scott and myself and stuff. So do I think it's important to meet with BC Housing? 100%. But there is been some movement. Obviously, when we've had the demolition of the Chamberlain units now, there were some conversations that we're still waiting to hear back from BC Housing. I think it's still important to meet with them, but I do believe we have some other priorities to me that were set by this council. And we talk about Minister of Citizen Services, and that's in regards to the final loop being dealt with. Minister of Forest, I mean, we're still waiting to find out what their prescriptions are going to be when they did the RFP last year to reevaluate the area around the Tumber Ridge outside our borders. Minister of Mines and Low Carbon Initiative, I think we need to meet with the Minister of Mines. I mean, we have Kanuma still waiting for a full permit for Quintet restart. We have other industry mines that are looking. I mean, obviously, Kanuma Resources has bought out the PRC from, Jesus, can't remember their company name, but
Anglo.
and the Minister of Education is important. I mean, we have a council that brought it up that we're in crisis. I know we do have a meeting scheduled with myself and Ms. Scott here later in the month or early July. So to me, they're all important. And I understand we've had a fire and had a resident complex with 51 units. I don't know if staff has a total number of how many units were vacant and not rented out. To me, there was a few of the vacant units. Still think BC Housing is important. Again, however council wants to handle it, I'm good with it. But again, that's why I rated it as a elected official on my own thoughts. And to me, I thought staff, just like we did previously with other things, staff would say, because everybody has, I think, different opinion. Acting Mayor Bertrand in regards to who their number one is. I think I heard from Councillor Jewett, her number one has changed. It's now BC Housing. Mine's still Minister of Health. We have huge concerns in regards to health services in Tumbler Ridge. We have doctor opening now within Tumbler Ridge that's been advertised by Northern Health. So I think that's a priority when we talk about healthcare for our citizens. Minister of Mines, I have it as number two because, without heavy industrial working within our community, that employs a ton of our residents. So to me, it's any way that the elected officials want to handle it. But I've already numbered them because I did that when I read through my agenda because I thought that's what we're going to be looking for. But to me, it's any way you guys want to run it.
Okay. I think for time-wise, I think numbering them and handing them in to staff to distinguish would probably be a quicker way. I definitely agree with you, Mayor. All of them are important. We have an issue with every single one of these ministries that we need to talk about. And I do agree, I think BC Hydro would be the last on the list, in my opinion, just because they aren't a ministry. But yeah, I completely agree. I think every one of them is important, and we need to try to get those meetings in order. Yeah, I think maybe we'll call a 5-minute recess here and we'll get these numbers into staff. Mayor and Councillor Dussault, if you might be able to send a screenshot possibly to Ms. Scott. Okay. All right, 5-minute recess, please. So we did send some numbers to staff here to try and work out. I think maybe we should move on to second recommendation and talk about BC Hydro topics possibly. Councillor Julik.
The council requests a meeting with BC Hydro during the UBCM conference and that the following topics be identified for discussion.
Seconder. Councillor Norbury. All in favor? Opposed? Carried, thank you. Mayor Kirkowka.
Thanks, Acting Mayor Bertrand. So I was reached out by HD Mining. There may be a concern that there may not be enough power on the BC Hydro grid to make sure they have power. They are going to be going back into idle just because as they work through the process. That was confirmed to me. They will be coming in as a delegation to council. I believe it's next month that they've reached out to staff already. But this is one of the topics that I had a meeting with, and this is one of the comments they had made in regards to being electrified, was there's may be concerns that there's not enough power on the grid for them to be able to be powerized. So I think that's a question that we need to be asking BC Hydro. I know when I met with HD, they are having some conversations right now with Canadian Resources. I'm not sure if maybe they can get a transformer shared to their sites just so they can power, whether that's a security shack or whatever, because right now they're running off a generator. They don't have any power to site. They're running off a generator. So that was what was mentioned to them. So I think it's a relevant question to BC Hydro. Where do we sit when it comes to HD when they become active? How does that look? Do they have enough power? What's the process? Because I look at Canadian Resources, who's bought PRC from Anglo American, and that's got power there right now. But when they become fully active as well, does that affect the grid? And I think that's a great question from this council to make sure that we have BC Hydro on board and they're going to be able to have enough power for it all.
Absolutely. Yep. Good question. Does council have any other topics that they would like to identify for BC Hydro? I'm kind of curious on the call for power. Recently, there's been a call for power throughout the province, and there was some new renewable projects in the works. It'd be interesting to get an update from BC Hydro in regards to any new renewable projects in our area, if you haven't already. That would be my curiosity. Any other topics in regards to BC Hydro? Mayor Kirkowka. Still on mute. There we go.
Sorry, having some issues with my cell phone. I have to call in because for some reason my mic on my laptop's not working. I know there is some projects in our area. They were updated and handed or advertised. But I think that's a great question because there is another call for power coming. So I think it's a great question to also have on the list, to have that communication with BC Hydro to find out what the outlook looks like for the region. So I think that's a good idea by yourself to have that forwarded there, to just have that dialogue to see what their thoughts are.
Yeah, absolutely. I think any of those types of projects certainly have an economic impact to our community if they're close. And if they are planning any of those, we certainly want to be prepared in regards to any services that those projects may need. All right, any other topics? Councillor Hoffman?
If we do end up talking to BC Hydro, I'm wondering if we could just make that contact for being closer for when they are the larger scale plants. I mean, there's just federal talk of corridors being put up, mines that they want, minerals that they want from various areas, including Yukon, what it would look like if BC Power is going to go up north, what it'll look like if we're trying to sell to California. I realize that may not be as much directly impacted here, but we're right in the middle of it. Depending on which ways things are flowing, maybe we can be a spot or a locale where they would want to consider to put various options on the table. I also don't want to be in the same spot that we are with gas. So if we're just having the dialogue with BC Hydro and, I don't know, once a year, once every 6 months of asking them to, well, 6 months is probably too often, but every year having the delegation for the next few years, just seeing where it's going. I just think things are going to be changing, so we might as well be aware of them.
Absolutely. And good opportunity to advertise our community for a hub if needed. Yep. Okay. Any other topics for BC Hydro? No? Okay, I think that's a pretty good list to request a meeting for. Hopefully we can get it. Ms. Scott, should we move on to number 4? Yes. Yeah, okay. Number 4 recommendation, please. Councillor Julik.
The council identifies as follows whether they prefer to meet with the minister or staff.
Seconder, Councillor Norbury. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thank you. Okay, so here's the same list of ministries that we have requested meetings for, and staff is wondering which people council would like to meet with, if they would prefer ministry or staff. Councillor Julik.
Talking with Ms. Curry prior to the meeting, I understood that if we have the meeting with the minister, we get 15 minutes. If we have a meeting with the staff, it's 30 minutes. I'm always for the 30, and in my experience, I shouldn't say I'm always for the 30. The 30 is good, and in my experience, often with ministries, the staff has a better working knowledge of a lot of the pieces, and particularly with a newer group coming in. So for me, I actually wrote on my form that I would just as soon meet with the staff. And that also ties into how I ranked as well. So anyways, that's my point of view on it. So I don't need to fill out the thing, because for me, it's all staff.
Yeah, absolutely. Mayor Kirkauka.
Yeah, thanks, Acting Mayor Bertrand. So I did list them as well. So if council would indulge me, I won't read out the ministry, but I'll just read out how I did it. So the first one was I put an M for minister. I did minister, and then for the parks I did staff, and then I did minister for mines and forests, staff for citizen services, staff for BC Housing, staff for BC Hydro, obviously the Premier, minister for state of local government and rural communities. I believe it's very important on that one. The next one I put down minister or staff, and then for transportation I did staff. I think it's very, very important, and I agree with Councillor Julie. You get 30 minutes with staff. To me, staff does the work, but I think it's very important that we also reach out to some of these ministers. I think we have a great dialogue with our community and as elected officials. We've really built a dialogue here in the last few years with a lot of the ministries and their staff and their chief of staff. So I think it's important, definitely for the Minister of Health and some of the other ones. But that's kind of how I broke it up. I mean, hopefully council would indulge me in that, but I think that's, mixes it up a bit. But I do believe that we do need to meet with ministers. When I attend different conferences, so I was at the Natural Resource Forum in Prince George. Minister of Mines actually had staff looking for me in the room when they had the opening of the trade show. So I think it's important that we have that opportunity for council to get in front of the minister. Their staff's already in the room. They have their deputy minister there. Sometimes they may have a staff member in the room. But I do think it's important to meet with ministers and staff on certain things. And I'll be honest, the ones I put with staff, I think it's important that we connect with staff this time. And, ministers of citizen services, we're looking for some specifics. The minister we met with previously, I think it's important now that we maybe reach out to staff to see where that dialogue is in regards to, and I know that's not the only reason we're going, but to do the final loop within our community for internet. Again, staff for BC Housing. I mean, we've met with Ministry of Housing. I've flown to Victoria a couple of times. We met with Ministry last year. We met with staff of the BC Housing. I think we got more out of it. I think this year when we seen what happened with residents receiving notifications that the Chamberlain apartment or housing complex was going to be demolished, one, they didn't have a permit. I did use some of the contacts that I have that I've built up. We had staff reach out from BC Housing right away and work through the dialogue with our CAO. So I do think we gotta have a blend there, and I thought I had a fairly good blend, but willing to listen to the rest of council, but I don't think we can just meet with all staff. As Councillor Julican mentioned, I understand it's 30 minutes. We have other opportunities as well as we're at the UBCM, whether that's in the trade show, we go to different receptions or different sessions. There will be some staff there, and you'll be able to pick them out as you meet them throughout the week. So I think that's also another opportunity to circle back on some of our ideas if council's out and about and ends up, with a couple staff members from Minister of Tourism. Well, there's a conversation that can still be had by the elected officials then.
Absolutely. Completely agree. Councillor Norbury.
Thank you, Chair Bertrand. I think Mayor Kukalka made a lot of good points in regards to who you want to meet with, who, and when, with my rationale and who we'd be meeting with, a lot of it came down to what would be operational, and that would be staff, and what would be sort of new ideas or something like that, and that would be the minister, because that's who we need to create buy-in with. And yes, ideas can flow upwards from their staff to the deputy minister or the minister. I think we'd have more opportunity to create buy-in with the minister from a top-down approach, because they can, try and wield the ship in a certain direction, as slow as it is. So that being said, starting from the top for the Minister of Health, I prefer to meet with the minister. I think we have some big asks in terms of we want the ship to sort of turn in this direction. So that's where I'd be for number one. Thanks.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Hoffman.
Thank you, Chair. I'm not going to reiterate. Do we have a big push that we're asking for? If so, I think meeting with the minister is more effective. Us staff are not going to look to rock any boats, and if we're going to ask for something that might, then I think we should be meeting the minister on that. Housing's number one for me for minister. I know we have an ongoing dialogue, and we have a reason to push at a slightly different angle, or not so slightly different angle, and I think we should push. We haven't discussed that. I know I need to discuss that before it comes. I don't think we're going to have a replacement in the next 3 months with what we have had to happen. So whatever steps we take, I think housing has just become more, I don't want to use the word dire, but under more pressure than it was last week. I also have Minister of Forests, Minister of Mines, Minister of Education. We had a rather deep discussion on that last time, and Minister of Health. After that, I am not opposed to either side. I just think those are 5 areas where we really do want to make a push in a particular direction. So let's push. We can make the contact staff are there, and we could do the follow-up. So those were my top 5 for ministers. After that, I tend to prefer staff just for having the deeper dialogue, and we're not asking for anything special or new. Take the time, but open to anything. Thanks.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Any other comments? Councillor Dussault.
Hi, yes, thank you, Chair Bertrand. The other thing I would like to see, sorry, my phone's going off, is are we going to have any sort of video to present for Tumbler Ridge? And B, if we don't, I was wondering if we could reach out to the Geopark and inquire about their virtual reality headsets. I was in the other day, I joined Councillor Norbury there, and I had the opportunity to actually use one of the virtual headsets. And I tell you, it is an amazing thing. The fact that you feel like you're just looking down on everything and you're right there is just spectacular. I know we talk about fossils also to take as well. So those would be my 2 things if staff would have any idea about that.
Yeah, I know in the past UBCMs, we have taken a promotional video down and showcased it to all of our meetings, mostly for tourism meeting. I think that's a great idea. It certainly showcases our area and shows the province why it would be good to invest in our area too. Ms. Scott, do we have a promotional video, or are we planning one to bring with us to UBCM?
Yes, council has previously passed a motion for us to bring the video, yes.
Perfect, thank you. Mayor Kirkowka.
Yes, thanks, Acting Mayor Bertrand. So I guess what I'm looking for, is council's opinion in general, if there's trust within the mayor to select if we're meeting, meet with staff, their CAO, and go through this list, or are we going to itemize it and have staff again try to track which ones we're doing with, or is there trust and understanding that I probably have a good pulse that I select if we're meeting with minister or staff within the list that's in front of us. Just be curious how council would like to handle that. I mean, it's, I've listened to all the council, understand pretty much everything everybody's saying. So to me, it's either, have that trust and the faith in it, or do we, just send the list to Ms. Scott and staff will say who we're meeting with?
Councillor Hoffman?
I'm okay with that. If Mayor's good to go and he feels he's had sufficient feedback, it's kind of what I was thinking in the first place, that the person doing the meetings should have a large say in whom they're going to be meeting with. So I've had my say. I'm good with that.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Norbury.
Thank you, Chair Bertrand. Yeah, I'd be fine with the mayor making the choices. I think he has a little more back story and information about which different levels of these ministries that he's talking to. Mayor Kirkowka has pointed out he's meeting with different parts of different ministries. Example would be he's meeting with the local school board. He's meeting with the local representatives of Modi. So I think he provides better insight, has good insight on that. So I'd trust his judgment on this one. Thanks.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Julik.
I'm also okay to just let mayor and CAO figure that out.
Okay, thank you. Councillor DeSille.
Hi, yes, thank you, Chair. Yes, I also agree. I think the mayor and the CAO would definitely have a good pulse on this, so I think it's good for them to make the final decision.
Okay, thank you. Mayor Kirkowka.
So I know we put the motion on the floor and seconded it, that council identifies as follows whether they prefer to meet with the minister or the staff. Maybe we need to defeat this and put a different motion on the floor.
Agreed. Yep. So we'll call the question on the motion. All in favor? All opposed? Motion's defeated. So Councillor Julik.
Sorry, I'm just looking for my note that says what it was before. That council allows Mayor Kirkowka whether we meet with the minister or staff.
For the UBCM convention.
Yeah, I'm just kind of doing at the UBCM convention. Yep, sure.
Yeah. Did we capture that?
Just before you get a seconder.
Sorry. Go ahead, Mayor Kirkowka.
Just before you get a seconder, it should be direct. Direct the mayor.
Okay, that council directs the mayor to direct staff as to whether we meet with the minister or staff of the ministry at UBCM.
Okay, that sounds reasonable. Seconder, Councillor Hoffman. Discussion. I just have a comment. I'm just going by memory, but I didn't think we had a choice on minister or staff. I thought that was their choosing when we requested meetings. Ms. Scott?
It may have been a change since your previous time on council. Now we do have to specify whether we want to meet with minister or staff. Again, they will accommodate as best they can, but we do need to just ask which one.
Okay, thank you. Mayor Kirkowka.
Thanks, Acting Mayor Bertrand. I just want to thank council for that. I support the motion. I do have a pulse on this, and I don't plan on just picking it lightly. I'm back in town Friday, probably reach out to council one-on-one to kind of give an update of what I thought, just to make sure that I have the pulse. But I think it makes the process a bit easier. So I do appreciate council support, and I won't be steering the municipality wrong or council. I think I have a fairly good pulse on, obviously if we want it the minister or staff member, just because of the connections we've built, not that I've built them, that we've built. That includes everybody that sits on council. I think we have a very good rapport with not only the ministers, their chief of staff, their deputy minister, but also the staff below them. And I think that says a ton for this council because of some of the other meetings I've set up for other governments, local governments have not been the same feedback. So I think we all need to realize how well we've done building these rapports with the ministers and their staff below them, that I do appreciate the support from council.
Absolutely. Thank you. Okay, any other comments? Call the question on the motion. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thank you. Back to the third recommendation, I guess, as far as prioritizing Mayor Kirkcalka, I think you can take that feedback from council and do with it as you wish. That would be my recommendation. Mayor Kirkcalka.
Sorry, Acting Mayor Bertrand, I didn't quite hear it because I know we've sent the list back to staff.
Yes.
And I think it'll take a bit for staff to process that, but they'll end up having that. And I think, I think the direction is council has put their numbers where who they want to meet with as their number one, and that'll be as a majority rules. So, I mean, I'm not sure if staff's prepared to talk to it tonight, and they might not be. It might need a bit of time to work through it. There's 6 of us, but I do believe we have to also give the opportunity to understand that Councillor Noxana is not there tonight. I did advise staff. She's traveling back. She's had to take a different detour due to forest fires within the area that she's traveling through. So I think it gives her an opportunity to also be able to have input there. I think it's really important. I understand this is at our meeting and stuff like this, but this is a minister meeting that we go down to at the UBCM conference. So I think we give the opportunity to Councillor Noxana to be able to submit her numbers to staff as well. I'm not sure the feeling of council, but she'd be there right now if it wasn't due to wildfires within the region that they were traveling through, that they've had to take a different way.
Yeah, thank you for that. Yeah, and Ms. Scott, I think it'd probably be best to get Councillor Noxana, thank you, her input as well. And then we can pass that on to the mayor. Sound good?
Yes, I can collect that information from Councillor Noxana, and it may help break some of the ties.
Perfect. Thank you very much. Councillor Hoffman.
Thank you, Chair. Just thank you to Mayor Kirkcalka for bringing that up. I think this is big enough that missing a day, especially for forest fires, is not the time to bypass somebody's input. I don't know if this helps staff or not, but I was thinking that it would just simple aggregation should give us a pretty reasonable list of the priorities. Basically a point for, if it's number 1, it gets 1 point. If it's number 13, it gets 13 points, aggregate points, lowest score is number 1, and so forth. The reason I'm bringing that up is I don't know what your timeline is as staff, but if we have to go through it again and again, it may just not be worth delaying, especially if everybody has had their say and we have 7 inputs. I think all of the priorities we talked about are going to be low numbers. The ones that we didn't are probably going to be high numbers, and it just gives the staff the permission to go forward with this. So I'm not going to make the motion yet. I just wanted to throw it out there and see what council thinks of that.
Okay, thank you. Any other comments? Yeah, I don't see a need for this to come back, honestly. I think we've all made our choices and given direction to Mayor Kirkcalka to make these meetings. So in my opinion, I don't see a need for this to come back. Councillor Norbury?
Thank you, Chair Bertrand. Yeah, to Councillor Kaufman's point, I mean, that's exactly what's going to be happening. It's going to be a golf score, essentially, right? Lowest score wins. And yeah, I'm completely fine once Councillor Noxana provides her input, we run with that. Again, not interested in having to debate each other about what's first, what's second. I mean, at that point, we're kind of splitting hairs. So I think that's a good way of doing it. Thanks.
Agreed. We haven't got a lot to split. All right. Moving on to 6.2, flatbed
Your
and
worship?
quality. Sorry, Mayor
Your worship?
Kurkowka. Yes, sir.
Thank you, Your Worship. Just one thing there, staff will be bringing it back eventually because they're going to get replies back from ministry. So council will see the list that comes back from ministry and who we're able to meet with and who denied us. So we'll eventually see a list sometime in August, I would imagine, early September before UBCM, and what ministries we're actually meeting with and which ones, whether it's staff or minister, which ones couldn't fit us in the schedule. So we'll definitely see who we're meeting with before we attend.
Right. Yeah, I was just meaning for the prioritizing and setting up the meetings, but yeah, for sure looking forward to that. Okay, 6.2, Flatbed and Quality Falls parking lots, report dated June 9th, 2025 from the Director of Operations and Infrastructure regarding Flatbed and Quality Falls parking lots. Recommendation, please. Councillor Julik.
The council receives this report for discussion.
Seconder. Councillor Norbury. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thank you. Councillor Julik.
Yes, thank you. I thought it was a great report. It answered all of my questions, I would say. I was surprised at the cost of the outhouse. I did go and look and see that it's a pretty skookum outhouse, so I understand why it's there. I'm not definitely in favor just looking at the substantial cost to putting in the outhouses. Whether it was at the flatbed or quality, I know that it was something we definitely looked at, and I know myself going to quality with lots of toilet paper hanging around, that's always a little bit frustrating. I would say I really appreciated the feedback from Rec Sites and Trails and Ministry of Transportation, the different suggestions that they made, whether it's to do some more education around it, doing some signage, promoting, I don't know, it's in the strategic, it's in here. They had lots of different suggestions, which I agree with. I am still in favor of doing a hide-a-bag, bear-proof receptacle for Quality Falls. I think maybe that will help get rid of some of the toilet paper. Hopefully people would use that as an option rather than leaving it in the bush there, right? Because it generally tends to be right by the sign there is where I generally notice it. So I don't know if this is the part where we would do a motion, and I'm okay to have the discussion before a motion gets put out there, because I don't know if it would happen this year anyways, or if it would have to be next year's budget, whatever that looks like. But I just want to say thank you very much for all the information. I thought it was very, you answered all my questions in the report. I don't even have any for you.
Okay, thank you. Mayor Kurkowka.
Thank you, Acting Mayor Bertrand. Yeah, I think great report. I think it really tells us exactly in regards to Flatbed Falls. Really explains what it could be. It could be classified as a rest stop if they were to add this and add that. I think it's very thorough. A great job done by staff. I think if there's going to be a motion made that this is moved to the budget discussion in 2026 in regards to hide-a-bag bear-proof receptacle. I think there needs to be some conversation to see if there's any way of trying to get some of this expenses covered from elsewhere. I mean, it can add up over time throughout the summer with a lot of money when we, it's 30 minutes of staff time. It's in the report. Yeah, it's a small amount in front of you right now until you add that up and how many times they have to change it. I definitely think we need to look at something at Quality Falls that Councillor Julik had mentioned, and who covers it. If it's us, is there a way of trying to collect maybe some of that money in regards to a partnership or a pilot program with Rec Site BC, Parks and Rec, Ministry of Transportation. I think we've got to look at all options when we talk about increase the taxation and mandates that we may put in place for next year for our tax increase. But I do think Flatbed was very clear in this report to me. I think great ideas by council in regards to looking at some of these areas that are high traffic areas for tourism and stuff like that. And I think if there's going to be a motion moved or made, that we just move it to budget discussion so we can give a bit better direction to staff.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Norbury.
Thank you, Chair Bertrand. Yeah, I think having the bear-proof receptacle or some sort of garbage collection would be great at that area. So I'd support a motion that would move it towards budget deliberations. Thanks.
Okay, thank you. Any other comments? Yeah, I thought the report was very informative. Certainly see the need for garbage and bathroom facilities in those two areas, but there's certainly a lot of hoops and a humongous process to try and inventory those areas. I wouldn't be in favor of those. I think taking those suggestions that are in the report of maybe some more signage, but this also does represent a bigger thing that maybe we should be looking at more public restrooms within our community. I know if you are looking for one, it would be very difficult to find. There isn't a lot of signage and there isn't a lot of availability either. So it's definitely something council will need to think about. Councillor Julik.
I would like to make a motion that we move the Haida bag bear-proof receptacle discussions to the 2026 budget.
Okay, seconder. Councillor Norbury. Discussion. All in favor? Opposed? Carried, thank you. All right, adjournment, please. Recommendation, Councillor Norbury.
That the June 9th, 2025 Policies and Priorities Committee meeting be adjourned.
Seconder, Councillor Julik. All in favor? Opposed? Carried, thank you. Okay, I'd like to call special